Hi, I'm Paul Cowderoy, and I'd like to give my testimony today. I was born in 1957 in Sydney, Australia. I was born into a religious family. My father was Church of England and my mother was Methodist. However, no one in our family was saved at that time. I don't think we knew what saved meant. However, when I was 18 months old, two ladies from the Pendle Hill Baptist Church came around to our area in Queanbeyan, knocking on doors and asking if the children could come to Sunday school. And my mother, being Methodist and father being Church of England, thought that Baptist wasn't too far away from what they were, so they said, yes, you can take them to church. So they came and picked us up every Sunday in a car and took us to Sunday school. And then we were in that all the way until we grew up. Sunday school, church, youth group, boys brigade, everything. And that was a big part of our life. When I was coming up towards 16 years of age, we had a missionary trainee from New Tribes Mission in Rooty Hill. His name was Lance Hardy. He was my Sunday school teacher. And one Sunday he was asked to do the sermon in church. He did the sermon. And on the way out of church, he shook my hand at the door and he said, Paul, when did you get saved? And I smiled. I was a bit embarrassed. And I said to him, I've never been saved. And he was really serious. He wasn't smiling at all. He said, do you realise that you're on your way to hell? And I laughed. And I said, well, yeah, I guess I am, yeah. And that was all we said. And I went on home. But those words really rocked me. And I couldn't think about anything else the rest of that day and that evening. And I sat down in the evening in my bedroom at home. I got an exercise book out. And I started writing down in that exercise book what my life added up to, what my future ambitions were, all sorts of silly things like learning all the languages in the world. Now I'm trying to learn Chinese and I can't even learn one foreign language properly. And when I finished writing 10 pages of my ambitions out in that exercise book, I went back to the beginning and read the whole thing over again. And it just looked like a bunch of rubbish. And I thought to myself, my life is meaningless. Apart from the fact that I'm going to hell, I've got no purpose in life, because I was just making up all these fairy tale fantasy things that I thought I was going to make my life into. And I knew in my heart that it wasn't going to work. I also knew that at that age, I was already leaning towards sin and all the usually worldly things and that sort of thing. And I thought, no, I want to do something worthwhile, and I don't want to go to hell. Definitely, that was the most important thing I was thinking about it, the hell. And also my sin. I was thinking, what a huge weight of sin I've got. Even then I felt it as a teenager, and I really wanted to do something about that. So the gospel was very clear to me. The Sunday school teacher and the church had taught very clearly. I knew what the gospel was. I got down on my knees beside my bed that evening and I prayed. I said to the Lord, I know that Jesus Christ died on the cross to pay for my sins, that he was buried and he rose again 3 days later. And on that basis, I'm asking him to save me and to cleanse me from my sins and take me to heaven when I die. And a simple prayer, but I got up from that off my knees, and it felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders with the sin, and I was like ready for a new start, and it meant a lot to me. And got really keen in all of the activities, youth group, boys, everything. I was number one, super keen in the church. And then, as per usual, sometimes things wear out and you start getting doubts. And maybe about 12 months later, we had a church youth camp at a cattle farm in Bathurst, about a 2,000 acre farm, a friend of the pastor's. We went up there And one of the guest preachers at the camp was Mr. Rex Palmer, and he was teaching a lot on are you really saved? And he actually got me to doubt my salvation to a severe degree. And there's a bit of a danger there. You can listen to preachers preach messages about you better check your salvation, it may not be real. And some preachers almost preach to you that, hey, you need to get saved again now type of thing. And I think you need to be careful about that, because that's how I started feeling, and I felt a real sense of despair. I didn't know whether I was saved or not. And I'm trying to ask the leaders and a pastor and everybody questions about it, and they say, oh no, did you when you got saved before and all that. And as well as kneeling beside my bed, I went forward at the next invitation in church, and I was also counselled by the deacons at the back of the church and given literature and all that sort of thing, and they went through the verses and all that. I didn't feel that there was any problem with my salvation at the time. But then that 12 months later, when that guy started teaching and preaching on, you need to be sure of your salvation, it was almost like he was trying to talk you out of it, and that became a huge problem to me. So there was a lot of doubt there, and none of them could answer the questions that I had or put my heart to rest on that matter. In 1975, I finished high school, Greystanes High School, and I went to Canberra in 1976 to study Chinese and Russian, with Chinese as the major. And that was quite a bit of a shocking experience for me. The first time I'd ever been away from home, and having been used to a very stable, cosy sort of a home atmosphere where you get looked after and everything. And to go down there and you have to start cooking your own meals and washing your own clothes, and I was extremely homesick, and it was a very hard life for me to settle into. In the second year of my university studies, I deferred. I went back to Sydney because I was sick of the loneliness and everything. So I went back to Sydney. But the reality at that time was a bit of a recession in Sydney in 1977, and it was very hard to find jobs. I had a couple of jobs driving trucks and doing off-siding, and the way you got treated in the work world as that sort of a person, that sort of a job, was you were basically dirt, and they would make you work for long hours, and it was not very great. And I was really keen to get back to the studies again the next year, even though I had not intended to go back at all. I had intended to get a great job and earn heaps of money and get a new car and all those sort of things that a young man wants to do, but that didn't work. So I think I'm going back to my studies. So I went back to Canberra again in 1978. One day when I was sitting in the playground, the quadrangle, just sitting there, I think I was eating my lunch or something, and this young guy came up to me. He was student life at the campus, and he said to me, do you mind if I talk to you a few minutes about the Lord? And I said, no, go ahead. And this guy was shaking. He was so scared to witness to somebody. And I didn't say anything about being a Christian. I sort of wanted to sort of test him out a little bit. And his voice is really shaking and that, but he went ahead with his little spiel and came to the point. He said to me, has there ever been a point in your life when you've trusted Jesus Christ as your Saviour? Do you know for sure you're going to heaven? And I said, yes, I do. I got saved this and this date, and this is how I got saved, etc., etc. And all of a sudden he got really happy. He looked really happy and everything. Oh, that's great. So he got me to come along to their student life meetings, and I was also going along to the meetings of another college Christian fellowship group. And but at that time I was attending Baptist Union churches, having come from a Baptist Union church in Sydney. I couldn't say that I was greatly growing in the Lord. I finished my studies in 1980, and I immediately went to China in 1981 to study more Chinese, spoken Chinese. And I made a big mistake when I went to China. I was, with my usual big ambitions and big ideas, I said, when I'm in China, I'm only going to speak Chinese and I'm only going to read Chinese. Therefore, I can't take my English Bible with me. I can only take my Chinese Bible. I got to China, I opened the Chinese Bible, and it looked so complicated and hard and everything. I thought, oh, I can't read that. So I virtually canned the Bible, and my spiritual condition just went down and down and down and downhill every day. I can surely testify to you that if you don't read the Bible every day, your Christian life is going to suffer enormously. I got myself into the pits of despondency and loneliness again. After being there for 2 years, I was offered a scholarship with the Australian government to do 2 more years study there, and I absolutely didn't want it. It was a lot of money, but I just wanted to come back to Australia and be with my family again, and have some company and people that I could talk to. So that's what I did. And then I did get a call because I did the public service test in Canberra. I got a call. No, I didn't get a call. Actually, I rang them myself 12 months later because I had done the test and you're supposed to get informed very quickly about the result. I never got informed, so I rang them 12 months later and they said, sorry, we lost your papers in the bottom of the desk here. Yes, you've got a job in Canberra. Please come down as quickly as you can. So I went down there, started in the Department of Trade in the office, and my supervisor was attending Capital Bible Church in Canberra. This is 1984, and his name was Bill Morris. And he said to me one day, Paul, I heard that you're a Christian and I'd like to invite you to our church, Capital Bible Church. And he said, will you come? And I said, yes, straight away. Because I'd been around to all the Baptist Union churches in Canberra and I wasn't happy at all because the Canberra Baptist Church, the original one, they had lots of scientists in there, and they were teaching that you could mix evolution in with your Bible. And I went to another church, Baptist Union church, and they preached a sermon on how to improve yourself in the public service. No mention about the Lord at all during the message. And I wanted to go to a church that preached the gospel so that the unsaved people could get saved. To me, that was the most important thing. And Bill Morris, my supervisor, his look on his face was not very. He looked totally puzzled. And are you really going to come? Are you sure you're going to come? Yes, I'll be there. And he didn't believe me. And on Sunday, I turned up at church, and he was shocked, but he was pleased. So that was the start of going there. And in 1986, 2 years later, Pastor John Wheat came to Canberra from the US. That church happened to be the church that sponsored him for his visa to come to Australia. So I met up with Pastor John Wheat and we started doing tracts work, door knocking. All these things were totally foreign to me, but I really enjoyed it. When you're a Christian, you need to have an outlet. You can't just receive from people, even just receive from the Bible. You need to go out and give and put your faith into action and strengthen it that way. And so we did a lot of that. And then in 1991, we started the Queanbeyan Bible Baptist Church. A small group of us went with Pastor Wheat to do that. And then in 2001, after that was started and we bought a property, we immediately came to Sydney and started Open Bible Baptist Church in Sydney. During my time in Canberra, I had opportunity to speak with Pastor Wheat and to air my concerns, my previous concerns about my doubts of salvation. And Pastor Wheat, his approach was like this. He said, look, I don't know whether you were saved or not before, but just to make it all clear, just pray and ask the Lord to save you again now and get baptized again as well. And just clear everything up and whatever, and like start as if it's all starting all over again. And I did that. But as soon as I prayed the sinner's prayer again, I knew in my heart that I had been saved before. I felt like I was just going through the motions the second time. But just the doing that actually gave me the assurance of salvation that I needed anyway. I knew that it had just been a ploy of the devil to try to give me doubts all the time. And then Sydney was another chapter again, and we found it was totally different to Queanbeyan, being a much bigger city and a lot more multicultural, people from different countries coming. It was quite another challenge, but a blessing as well. And as Pastor Jason of Open Bible Baptist Church has mentioned, he's never found a better spirit in any church other than Open Bible Baptist Church in Sydney. And I would have to testify the same thing, that I never found a better spirit amongst the people. Even though the church, sometimes when a church grows, it sort of changes its character and spirit. But I found that even though our church here has grown heaps from a tiny handful of people of 7 and 8 people to now like 130 or more on a Sunday morning, the spirit has remained the same or even improved. It's been really good. You can just feel the Lord's blessings on the church. Of course, the devil also does a lot of things to try to mess it up. He'll send somebody in to discourage and try to lead people in the church in the wrong way. Those sort of things happen from time to time, but it doesn't stop the blessing of the Lord which he has on the church.